Everybody, welcome back. We are into the last segment of the week. The football guy, James, is going to talk football as usual, and we are talking NFL draft picks, specifically picks 21 through 32, the important ones. James, why are they important?
To be honest, man, every pick in the first round is important. I mean, in a 7-round draft, the first round is going to be insane. It's stock full of talent. If we've seen anything in the NFL, it's like the first three rounds, you can get a superstar in those 3 rounds. But the first round in of itself, it increases your chances exponentially. So we're going to do a mock draft today. We're going to do 21 through 32, like Eric had mentioned. But the guys are going to be trying a little bit hard to get these right, because whoever wins and gets the most right, I'm going to give him $25, maybe 50, maybe 100. I don't know. Hasn't been decided yet. But the better you are, the more money you'll get. So we're going to start off with number 32 of the NFL draft. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Traden, who are you drafting?
Okay. Here's the thing about the Tampa Bay. They got all 22 starters coming back. They don't need much. And I think that, I think they're going to add running back Najee Harris. I think that he's just going to slot in as a nice backup, and he's just going to, there's already a strong running back group, and he's just going to be, the guy that comes up after everyone starts to, go by the wayside.
Interesting. Definitely not what I was thinking at all. Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, that's not what I got. Wait, so how many do I have to get right to get $100? Now I'm curious.
You'll see at the end when we get to number 1. I will tell you.
Okay, cool. So for the Bucs, yeah, Traden, you're right. They brought all 22 starters back. They don't need a bunch. That typically is what happens when you've just won the Super Bowl. But I'm going to go with Levi Onwuzurike. Nailed it. He's a defensive lineman from Washington. I think that core of especially on the line is a little bit older. He doesn't have to be a starter right away. He can learn and then kind of build into that system. That's what I got going to the Bucs at 32.
Eric.
For the Bucs, 32. I'm also on the defensive side of things. I'm going with the linebacker from Georgia, Azeez Ojulari. He's going to learn from that core group of guys they have now, and just build off of that.
For my pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I went with Zaven Collins from Tulsa. He's an outside linebacker. He plays the same position as Jason Pierre-Paul, and as Traden had mentioned, they returned all their starters. Jason Pierre-Paul is a little bit older, though, so he could sit there, learn the ropes, and, be a good outside linebacker in the future. Not right now. Tyler, because he's not here, Tyler went with Jason Owen, an edge rusher from Penn State. 31, Kansas City Chiefs. Alex, who are you drafting?
Yeah, we talked about it during the How Do We Fix the Chiefs segment a couple weeks ago. But I'm going Elijah Vera Tucker, offensive lineman from the Trojans down there in Southern California. Someone's got to protect Patrick Mahomes. They did let a couple of their guys leave in free agency / cuts. So Elijah Vera Tucker, USC.
I went with the same exact pick as you. The cool thing about him, he plays both guard and tackle positions, so he can slot in anyone on the line. And he also only allowed 2 hurries last season. That's crazy. Eric, what do you got?
I got an offensive tackle from Notre Dame, Liam Eichenberg, because, like we said, they need good linemen.
Traden?
I, too, have an offensive lineman from Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins. Can slot in as a tackle or a guard, and he's NFL ready. Let's go.
I like that. Tyler went with Samuel Cosme, an offensive tackle from Texas.
At least we're all on the right page.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody went offensive line. That's awesome. Number 30 in the NFL draft is the Buffalo Bills, a.k.a. Alex's favorite team. So, Alex, who you got going to the Bills?
Okay, first of all, the Rams are my favorite team. Josh Allen and our boys. That's just what it is. I am going, and I'm actually not super confident with this one, but I'm going with Travis Etienne, running back from Clemson.
Really?
I know that their offense is legit, and they probably need more help on the defensive side. I'm just not sold on those running backs. And I think Travis Etienne, played with Trevor Lawrence. I think that him matching up with in that Bucs offense in the Bills offense could be deadly.
Eric, what do you got?
Jason Owe, defensive end from Penn State. Just to continue to build their defensive side. They kind of needed a stronger defense, it seemed, when they played the Chiefs. So build that defense.
Traden.
I have a sneaky one. It might be, might be a steal, but it might be a bit of a stretch. I have Pat Fryermuth from Penn State, his tight end. Instantly he's gonna join that. He's gonna be their number one tight end because I think they really need that, and he's gonna bring his big strength is the red zone, and I think that's gonna be a huge push for that offense there.
He wasn't even on my big board for this. That's crazy. That's a sneaky pick for sure. I went with Jalen Phillips, an edge rusher from the U. He was one of the best edge defenders this year, but he's going to slip because he has concussion history. He had 9 sacks last season and hurried the QB 29 times. Like I said, the Bills are set on offense, but they need to improve their defense, and that's where they're going to go. Their defensive line is getting older, so you got to go younger on that aspect. Tyler picked Christian Barmore, a defensive tackle from Alabama. Number 29, the Green Bay Packers. Eric, what do you got?
I got a cornerback from Georgia, Tyson Campbell. They seem to be pretty stacked offensively, and I feel like I've said that a bunch already. So they need to build the defense.
Traden, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be mad that they're not going to pick a wide receiver in the first round. But I'm going to say from Notre Dame, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker. He's explosive. He makes an instant impact on the defense scheme that they kind of run, especially the pass rush, and they need help on defense. I like that pick.
I like that one too. Alex.
I went offense. I went with Samuel Cosme. We talked about him earlier, offensive tackle from Texas. I think with David Bakhtiari's injury, they're a little bit weaker up front there. So I think that's maybe where they're going.
I went with a very sneaky pick. I went with Nick Bolton. He's a linebacker. He's projected a 3rd-round pick, but he's a really good linebacker, and the Packers need a linebacker big time. He's not the fastest guy out there, but he's the smartest. He doesn't miss tackles. He's allowed a passing rate of 24. Crazy. He had the most stops in the SEC last year. And then Tyler went with Rondell Moore, a wide receiver from Purdue. So there you go, Traden. Wide receiver right there. Number 28, the New Orleans Saints. Traden, what do you got?
Yes, so I think the New Orleans is going to replace Trey Hendrickson with an edge rusher in Gregory Rousseau from Miami. It's going to take the pressure off of the rookie Cameron Jordan. I think that he's gonna find his way up in that lineup, and I think he's going to be a huge pick.
Alex?
I went with Jamin Davis, linebacker out of Kentucky. I think same thing on the defensive side. I think, that's what they're kind of struggling with compared to the offense, which even with Drew Brees retiring, still has a lot of weapons. So that's what I went with for the New Orleans Saints.
Eric?
Gregory Rousseau, the D-end from Miami, who you mentioned earlier, I think.
I think Traden just mentioned him.
Traden.
That's who I picked.
Like just right now. I went with Caleb Farley, a cornerback from Virginia Tech. The Saints defense was okay last season, but the corners were getting torched constantly. He opted out last season, so he doesn't have any stats. But in 2019, he was the best coverage linebacker there was, or not linebacker, cornerback there was. He had 4 picks. And then Tyler went with Kadarius Toney, another wide receiver from Florida. Tyler's going very wide receiver heavy in this draft.
Really?
Number 27. You need more wide receivers, right?
Yeah.
That's what Tyler says. Number 27, the Baltimore Ravens. Alex, what do you got?
So I went with who you picked for the Bills, with Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher out of Miami. The Ravens, have traditionally been a defensive team. So I think that they, maybe they're not as scared of the concussion issues, and they're going to pick him at number 27.
I like that. Eric?
I got a wide receiver from LSU, Terrace Marshall Jr. They need even more weapons for Lamar Jackson to throw to.
I agree with you there. I also have the same thing with Terrace Marshall Jr. He's a big body, and that's something that the Ravens desperately need. Their best wide receiver is 5'7" in Hollywood Brown. The thing about Terrace Marshall, though, he runs a 4.3 840. Guy's crazy fast, crazy athletic. He had 700 yards last season and 10 touchdowns. And surprise, surprise, Tyler also picked Terrace Marshall Jr., another wide receiver. So 3 wide receivers in a row for Tyler. Trade, what do you got?
Yeah, I have a wide receiver, but I don't have your guy from Ole Miss. We got Elijah Moore. I like his quickness. I think he's going to be a good security blanket for our boy Lamar, who desperately needs that improvement on the wide receiver end.
Love it. Moving on to number 26, we have the Cleveland Browns. Eric, what do you got?
I have Elijah Moore. Everything trade and described, but for the Browns system.
Okay. I actually went with Gregory Rousseau, who you guys said last pick, but the reason being is I don't think he's slipping. 26 is far enough for him to slip. Anything more than that, it's going to be a travesty. He's going to work really well with Myles Garrett and Takk McKinley. That's going to be a good defensive line if they can get him. Trayden, what do you got?
For Miami, I have Jalen Phillips, the defensive line. I think that, you're just going to keep boosting that up. He's also pretty versatile. He can play the edge. He can also play the inside. And I think that's that's a big deal. And I think that he's going to help with that offensive line that is already pretty solid.
Alex?
So I went with Terrace Marshall Jr. for this pick, not whatever was the last pick. I know. I think that OBJ could be out. There's been rumors that they've been talking about trading him. So I think that the Browns might snag him a pick earlier than what you guys were projecting.
Okay. And then Tyler went with Jamin Davis, a linebacker from Kentucky. 25, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also have the number 1 pick. It's crazy. Tyler, Trayden, what do you got?
Let's get this is a preview from what I think is going to be the first pick. Let's get Lawrence, a wide receiver, in Kadarius Toney from Florida. I think that those two are just going to develop a good chemistry right from the get-go. He's also very speedy, and I think that's going to help that budding offense.
With an Urban Meyer-led offense, that's going to be insane to watch. Alex?
So I agree on the position. I disagree on the player. I think it's that Rondell Moore from Purdue. I think he will remind Urban Meyer of Percy Harvin, who played at Florida with Urban Meyer, teaming him up with probably Trevor Lawrence. We'll see when we get to number 1 if I pick something different. But that's who I got going to the Jags.
I got Zaven Collins, the guy you mentioned earlier, the linebacker from Tulsa. Build the defense.
So for my pick at 25, because I believe that Trevor Lawrence will become that number 1 overall pick, I went with Tevin Jenkins, a tackle. You got to protect your quarterback, especially if it's somebody as good as this guy. He's a will imposer. If he slips at 25, that's going to be insane because he's probably the second best offensive lineman in this draft. He only allowed 4 pressures on 211 pass sets last season. The guy's crazy good. He's a massive human being. And at 25, Tyler has Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a linebacker from Notre Dame. That was really hard to pronounce.
I said it earlier.
It was a good thing Tyler wasn't here.
Tyler would have probably stuttered it out, but that's fine. Number 24, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Eric, what do you got?
Najee Harris, running back from Alabama. Who I don't even remember who their running back was this last year, but
James Conner.
Yeah, he didn't do that good, I don't think, because I didn't hear his name a lot. But I also didn't watch a lot of Steelers. But they need a running back to build the offense. Steelers.
I agree with you there. I also said the same thing with Najee Harris. So we've agreed on 2 things now. James Conner is not returning this season, which means that running back room is pretty much empty with a bunch of guys that have no names whatsoever. Like, they don't produce. He almost had 1,500 yards rushing alone last season and also had 26 touchdowns. Trayden, what do you got?
I got linebacker from Georgia, Azeez Ojulari. I think that might be a risky pick because I think I assume he's going to fall this far back, but I think the Steelers continue to find, their gems on the line. And this is just another one of those.
Alex?
I've got Carlos Basham, the edge rusher from Wake Forest. I think same thing. The Steelers are going to load up on defense. I have Najee Harris going earlier, which is why he doesn't fall to them. But I think the Steelers go full defense.
Is Najee Harris your first running back off the board?
Mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. For number 24, Tyler has Jalen Mayfield, an offensive tackle from Michigan. Number 23, my second favorite team in the NFL right now, that's the New York Jets. Traden, what do you got?
From Florida State, Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback. He's a big playmaker, and I think he's gonna help in that Robert Saleh defense. He's gonna adjust nicely, and I think that with that coach, as your new mentor, watch, this guy's gonna be big time.
Alex?
I agree. I think they, not with the player, but I agree that with Robert Saleh as the new head coach, they're going to pick defense here since they're most likely going to pick offense earlier in the draft. I have Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa. You guys have mentioned earlier. He's super athletic and he can fly around that on that defensive that defense for Saleh there in New York.
Eric?
Travis Etienne, the running back from Clemson, or however the fuck you say his last name, because James is laughing at me. But their running backs have just been old. Frank Gore, Le'Veon Bell, and they haven't done shit. And Darnold needs a guy to help take pressure off him. You need a fresh, young dude to help run the ball for him.
I agree with you once again, Eric. That's ridiculous. But I also went with Travis Etienne. That's how you pronounce his name. Etienne.
I was close.
To Alex's point that Robert Saleh is the defensive guy, and so he thought they were going to pick defense, and I disagreed because of that reason. I think because Robert Saleh is such a good defensive coach, he can make do what he has. But they're going to be running a Kyle Shanahan offense, and a Kyle Shanahan offense is predicated on having a good, explosive pass-catching running back, and that is what Travis Etienne is. The guy had 580.
Traden said defense too, just saying. You don't have to just throw me
so
under the
you and
bus.
Traden. Sorry. My bad. Traden, your point was also terrible, just so you know.
Yeah, come on, Traden.
Travis Etienne had 588 yards receiving, which led the nation. So he was the best pass-catching running back there was in the nation last season. That's why I think he'll do well on the Jets. Tyler had Caleb Farley, a defensive back from Virginia Tech. Moving on, number 22, we got the Tennessee Titans. Alex, what do you got?
I have Greg Newsome II, a cornerback out of Northwestern. The Titans lost a lot of their cornerback depth during this free agency period, and I think that they need help out there. So I've got Greg Newsome II.
I agree with you there as well. I have the same guy. The Titans run a very zone-heavy defensive scheme, and Greg Newsome is a very good zone corner. He only allowed 12 receptions last season for 93 yards. That was it all season long. Only give up 93 yards. Lockdown corner. Eric, what do you got?
I have Greg Newsome II. Everything you just said and everything Alex just said, I agree.
I love it. Traden.
Wow, I feel like an idiot. From Purdue, I got Rondell Moore, wide receiver. I think you need someone to replace Corey Davis, and I think his explosiveness is gonna be huge for that offense.
At 22, Tyler picked Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota. And last but not least, we got the Indianapolis Colts at 21. Eric, who you got?
Kwity Paye, defensive end from Michigan. Build a defense.
This is ridiculous, but I agree with you once again. Like, what the hell, man? Kwity Paye is going to go the Colts. The Colts lost a lot of defense this year. D'Amico Autry went to a division rival, and Justin Houston has not been re-signed, which is leaving DeForest Buckner on that line all by himself. So draft this guy as defender. He's the most athletic edge defender in the draft. He hasn't put it all together. He needs a lot of polish, but to be as good as he is with as little refinement as he has, it says a lot about how much better he'll be if he can put it all together. Trey, what do you got?
One of my favorite teams in the NFL, from Penn State, Jason Owe. He's an edge rusher. His athleticism and his grit and his just pure straight athleticism, like I said, is going to be the key for this. And I think he's a perfect fit for this Indianapolis team.
Alex?
I went in a totally different direction. I went with Elijah Moore, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. I think they want to pair a quick, speedy guy with Carson Wentz, who they, for some reason, traded for because he's Carson Wentz for whatever reason. But I think they're going to need kind of a blanket for him, I guess.
Yeah, a safety blanket. I like it.
Yeah, safety. Thank you.
You're welcome. Tyler went with Aziz Ujulari, an edge from Georgia, at 21 to the Indianapolis Colts. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is the first part of a 3-part draft series. Stay tuned and see who gets number 1.
Thank you, James. That was that'll probably actually make me pay attention now to the NFL draft. And now I just learned a little more about all these players and I do like how you compared it with what we said teams needed, because I kind of forgot what I said teams needed, but you reiterating what we said helps me actually pick the right guys for these teams to go to, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.